Welcome to Kingdom Authority with James Alford, your source for insight on spiritual warfare, discernment, and the power of God. Be prepared for your eyes to be opened like never before and walk in the power of God's kingdom. Here is your host, James Alford.
Hello, this is James Alford with the Kingdom Authority broadcast. Today, we have a very interesting discussion we're going to have. We're going to be talking about the alien deception and how people will respond to aliens showing up or to aliens showing up on this earth and claiming to be God. And I have with me my good friend, Aman Evans. And, Aman, I've been watching on the news and all this stuff about alien disclosures and all this stuff. And everybody's like, oh, they're aliens. And we're seeing all these craft and all these interesting things going on. And I continuously ask myself, what's really going on here?
Oh, yeah.
And, I think about, the challenges we have right now as the children of God, trying to minister to people, trying to bring people to Christ, where people are grabbing onto other ideas and mindsets. We deal with people who are unbelievers. And so they always finding different reasons why not to believe in God, why not to think the Bible is still relevant for today. How do you think aliens or quote aliens are landing on the doorstep of the White House and saying, hey, we're your gods? How do you think the world will respond to that?
I think the world will be very happy for that. And when I say the world, I do mean in terms of those who are unbelievers, because they want a reason and explanation as to why things are the way they are. So outside of God.
Right.
So, the idea of embracing God is just difficult for some people because of science and science mindedness, or just the diversity. Like, I would say that science has deceived people into believing that science and God don't mix, whereas what has really happened is science explains how God did things. That's really all that happened.
Right.
And the conflict is with timescales.
Right.
So they're like, well, if the earth is this old or this takes this long and the Bible says the earth is only this young, those things are very subjective.
Right.
And they're based on a lot of aging and dating processes are based on assumptions. So when you eliminate those things and you just focus on the science behind everything, it's just explaining what God did. And when it comes to aliens visiting Earth, everything that we attribute to aliens has been explained in the Bible. So interdimensional travel, teletransporting, like all those elements of, even when the Bible describes a wheel within a wheel, way back then when that book of the Bible was written in 2,000 plus years ago, a wheel within a wheel, people are thinking of a wagon wheel and they're thinking of these antiquated ideas about a wheel.
Right.
But actually, a flying saucer is a wheel within a wheel.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I know a lot of people when they're talking about these things going on, and we look at the Bible and the things that happen in the Bible, and we look at what they're saying about these craft, and they're, like you said, they're saying they're interdimensional, and they're saying that they're not subject to the natural laws. So they're flying into the water and they're not splashing. They're disappearing. They're appearing in another place. They're moving at unbelievable speeds and stuff like that. And I've even heard some of them say it's akin to magic, what they're doing. And I think it just speaks to I personally don't believe what they're seeing and what they're experiencing are necessarily aliens from another planet, a million miles away or whatever, a billion trillion, whatever the distance is away. I think these are entities. These are falling angels, demonic entities, and also some of God's angels that are transversing the earth. And I think now we've just gotten to the place where our technology is able to observe them more so, whereas 1,000, 2,000 years ago, when someone observed an angel, all they could think of was it more in the biblical sounding terms or whatever. Today, the observation and the experience of that may be more like what some people think are alien. Like I hear some people saying that aliens. Like there was an instance where this guy said he interacted with an alien, and all of a sudden he was like, he was speaking to him telepathically.
Yeah.
And he couldn't move and he was frozen. Well, all those things sound more spiritual than they sound natural. And so I think what people are having is they're having what we would call spiritual experiences with these entities, whether demonic or godly, and they're equating it to aliens.
Yeah, and it makes sense because Satan, just like Satan makes himself appear as an angel of light, he's going to make himself appear in a way that's acceptable. That's really what it's saying. So it does literally mean an angel of light, but also what it refers to is something that a person can receive.
Right.
And and if you look at the world at large, it's easier for them to receive an alien than it is an angel.
Absolutely.
And we know that aliens, like if you read throughout the Bible, aliens angels can change their form. I was reading in one book, in the Book of Giants, how one alien, his natural state is a flame, and then he transforms to appear as a man.
Right.
So it's like the range of what they can do, and then the Bible talks about an angel. They even gave him history. In one case, it was an angel, and he presented himself as a member of the children of Israel, and it told he had a backstory and everything, and they had questioned him and all that. But of course, reading the Bible, we knew it was an angel. The people at in the present of the circumstances did not know it was an angel. So we know that they can present themselves in different ways. And an alien is just humanoid. So we know even from other descriptions, angels take on all kinds of forms. They look all kind of weird, different ways. Right. So a gray alien or whatever the case may be, any kind of description. So the recent one that they claim the image of, it looks very demonic. Like it's
and I was thinking about that. I was like, okay, these little gray beings you're saying with big heads and solid eyes are big and stuff. And I asked myself, what would happen if angelic blood was mixed with human blood? Anytime, you mix, things that aren't meant to be mixed, you come up with a level of defilement.
Yeah.
It would make sense for an angel and a human to mate and their offspring be something with a very large head and super big eyes and different colored skin, and so I think that, what people are saying they're seeing, I think these are probably, if not fallen angels, they're offspring of angels and whatever.
Yeah, it even says there's other books of the Bible found right along in the same caves with the Bible that talk about the experiences of the fallen angels and their children being giants and things, and even the spirits of their children are where demons come from, because that's kind of a huge point of contention. And this particular book, the Book of Giants, explains that they are the souls of the children of humans and giants. Right. And then so they physically had children. One of the book also refers to monsters. That term doesn't appear in the King James, to my knowledge. Monsters, I don't believe, occurs in the King James.
I don't think so.
But it describes them as there was giants, men of renown, and then this other book uses the term monsters. So you also see skulls with horns. And they believe that giants had features like horns and things like that. So
a lot, even some of this mythology that we see from thousands of years ago, a lot of it, I believe, came from these defiled beings that were on the earth, and they literally were referencing the Nephilim, these. Like I said, defiled creations
who are defined as gods. So a fallen angel is considered a god. He has children, and the interesting thing is people say, "Oh, the Bible just takes these stories from, they take these stories from Greece and they put this and that together, whatever." Right. Well, if you consider, it's like you have to look at the whole picture, And the reason that the reason I like talking to atheists just in terms of conversation and non-believers, because just like any other person who believes or doesn't, there's also intelligent. They're intelligent,
Right.
And to have that conversation and start getting them to realize, stop thinking about the idea that God doesn't exist and look at the Bible. Like when I do discussions and things like that, it's a matter of biblical accuracy, not whether
Right.
God exists or Jesus is the Son of God and this
So,
and that.
so you believe atheists are going to, if one professing to be an alien from a different world comes to Earth or shows up in a visible form on Earth, you believe that atheists are going to receive them
Oh yeah,
as God.
And atheists will receive an alien, and well, I mean, just look at it this way: NASA is not out there looking for angels.
Right.
They're spending billions of dollars looking for aliens.
Right.
They're looking for life on other planets. They're
Right.
not looking for human life on other planets.
So you're saying they can conceive that aliens are able to cross millions and billions of miles in a matter of a short period of time, and able to come and disappear and appear and do all these amazing things, but they resist the fact that angels from God can operate in the same level of, of I guess appearance of power.
Yeah, they're resisting their existence.
Yes.
So, if you're resisting their existence,
So it's not
you're not even considering what they can do.
So it's not the supernatural aspect that they're resisting. They're just resisting a creator, and so they're not resisting the power as much as they're resisting God. They just against God,
because even creation is supernatural. So so no, I'm sorry, not creation, existence. So the Big Bang Theory is technically supernatural because you can't naturally have nothing come from nothing.
Right.
That's actually the Big Bang is a supernatural event. It's now called the singularity.
Right.
In which even if two universes collided, it's still a supernatural event, because where did they come from?
Right.
So
yeah, it's interesting when I see scientists and stuff talking about, like, for instance, quantum mechanics, quantum theory, creating computers that operate out of quantum, and they begin to talk. I'm listening to them and I said, man, they sound like a wizard, because they're saying, oh, we're going to reach into other dimensions, and we're going to get information, and we're going to use multiple dimensions to solve this equation, and how something can be two different states at the exact same time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so I listen to that. I'm like, man, it sounds spiritual, but they've put it in a natural context. And so they're able to embrace that.
Yeah.
No matter how strange it may sound, they're able to embrace that. But when we talk about God and how Jesus was raised from the dead, or how Mary, conceived a child, through the Holy Ghost. So we talk about, how just the things that happen in the Bible. We're like, oh, those are just myths. But we believe in quantum theory. We believe in the ability to access different dimensions. We believe that, hey, these craft are opening up wormholes and all this type stuff, which in essence is much of the same stuff that the Bible talks about. It just puts it in different terminology.
Quantum. So if you look at quantum mechanics and quantum computing at face value, they are pulling information from another realm of existence, per se. So with quantum mechanics, for example, right now a computer reads one line of code, and it interprets that line of code. With quantum mechanics or quantum computing, you're putting lines of code on top of each other, turning them into one line, and then interpreting them all at the same time.
Right.
So in essence, you're operating interdimensionally on a or to put it plainly, on a level that is above how we operate now. That's really what a dimension is.
Right.
It's a level beyond the current level.
That's why I call them wizards. I mean, it sounds like wizardry. Similar to how, and this is the thing, it's like sometimes Christians get into a thing where they think, they believe in God's power, but anything that represents power or supernatural or being able to tap those things outside of that, some Christians don't even conceive that, hey, the devil can access supernatural things too. Now, it may not be on the level of God or God's people, but Satanists, witches, wizards,
absolutely.
So them being able to tap into other dimensions and them being able to do these things that are akin to magic is not strange. As much as it is, I think all of this validates the existence of God.
Yeah, because they were taught, like witchcraft was something taught by fallen angels to men, and even getting back to quantum computing, all we're talking about is information from another dimensional level of existence coming down to our dimension, which is no different than an angel telling a human being how to take iron out of the earth and make a weapon and kill somebody. So,
I've heard some scientists. I heard the scientists talking and saying that they were going to send things. They were going to open up our reality, like a tear in our reality, and they were going to send stuff through. And then they said some things may come from the other dimension. I'm like, man, this is some crazy stuff. But doesn't that line up with people doing witchcraft and creating these witch portals where demons come through and all that type of stuff from so it's all in that same vein of just tapping into the supernatural and messing with devils and messing with entities and all this type of stuff, and something God is forbidden for us to do.
Yeah,
but it's still there. The ability to do it is still there if man wants to.
Yeah, it's all been explained. There's nothing. The Bible says one thing that is stood to be true, and it says there's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
And what the Bible understood is everything that can be learned can only be taught from existing intelligence, which is God. So God is intelligent. He gave angels intelligence, and everything that exists is within that realm comes from there, from God, from angels to man. So the concept of, even if we develop a machine that transports a person from one place to another, like on Star Trek, that's already been done in the spiritual. Jesus did it. Like there's a story in the Bible when he was in one place, in a second, instantaneously, he was in another place. That's teletransportation. So those concepts, like, and a lot of these ideas that we hear about and that we see, somebody like Gene Roddenberry, who's created Star Trek, he may have read. I don't know if this would happen, but he may have read the Bible. And was like, that's pretty cool. I'm gonna put that in this TV show. But he's like, the person's in one place at this moment in time, and instantaneously they're in another place. Like what happened to Jesus, I'm gonna put that in the movie. So there's nothing new under the sun. Even when they come up with it, Jesus did it, and then it was already technically done in the imagination on Star Trek, and then it happens in real life. And so it's still not new. And so nothing that, like, the idea of getting information interdimensionally is not new, because as soon as God tells you that, like, look at a prophecy, there's prophecies in the Bible that took place that you can historically look at and determine that this was written down 1,000 years ago, 1,000 years later it happened. So it's a verifiable prophecy that has happened. All that is interdimensional information.
Absolutely.
So it's our view that is antiquated of the Bible. And if you change your view and look at the Bible from a more modern and technological aspect, things start making more sense. Like, for example, they recently discovered through technology that there's enough fresh water underneath the saltwater ocean to cover the surface of the earth. So the Bible in Genesis says the fountains of the deep broke open. The Bible told us that there were fountains of water underneath the ocean. So,
I think, at the end of the day, it goes down to man's desire to be like God. And it started in the garden. It started with Adam and Eve. What did Satan come to Eve and say, eat of this tree, for you surely shall not die. And one of the biggest revelations I had was that there was actually more than one tree in the garden. There was a tree of life, but there's also the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The tree that God told them not to eat from was a tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And he did, because Satan told him, hey, you'll be like God, right? And so it was man's lust to be like God. Fast forward, what happened when the fallen angels made it with women, and what did the fallen angels do? They started to teach mankind how to do things that was forbidden. They taught them about witchcraft. They taught them about making war. They taught them how to formulate things or whatever. And so they were teaching them technology.
Yeah.
They were giving them in order to and even what happened with the Tower of Babel. How Nimrod had these people build this tower and to reach God. And so I think our technology advances and stuff like that are all a part of that same desire to be like God. And so we're even figuring out how to do things that are more on the context of being spiritual. We're figuring out how to do some of them by mechanical means.
Yeah.
And that's where these computers and these quantum things, they're building these, like I think it's Sweden, but they built this the world's largest atom smasher.
Yeah.
And it's like 20 something miles around or whatever.
Around in a big circle.
Their desire was to find the God particle. And their desire was to open up wormholes and black holes and all this type of stuff. And it goes back to man's desire to be like God. And so everything we create, a lot of things we create are to make life more convenient, life easier. We want to solve for world hunger. We want to fix all these things. We want to be like God. And nothing wrong. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with fixing world hunger, but the nature of all this comes from our desire to fix and to control and to be perfect under our own power.
Well, let's look at, you touched on something really interesting. So let's say world hunger, because one of the things we don't talk about a lot about, generally you don't hear conversations, is how Satan operates. He's very clever. He's highly intelligent. How is it we need to solve world hunger when there's enough food on earth to feed everybody?
Well, solving world hunger is just it's more of a catchphrase than it is what some people really want to do. But it goes to the aspect of, once again, people wanting to appear to do good,
right?
And they really want to be your God, and it's easier for them to be your God if you're hungry than if you're well fed.
And that's and the point I'm getting at. This is the point I'm getting at.
Right.
Is Satan has to create these circumstances because
it's
not we want to be like God, because Satan wants to be like God.
Yes.
So he's what he's doing is he's putting his will on us. Like one of the biblical stories in the book of Enoch, it talked about kind of what happened with Satan. So when God created man, all the angels had to give reverence to man. So they say, "Oh, we have to go down and worship Adam." And Satan's like, "I'm not doing that. He's just I'm older than him." And I believe it was Gabriel was like, "If you don't do it, God will be wroth." And so Satan was like, "Well, God can worship me."
Right.
And so right from the very beginning, he's like, "Well, I'll be God then."
Right.
So he creates circumstances on earth that has convinced people like that you need to solve world hunger, and you need to be part of something bigger than you,
right.
because that way you don't need God to do it, because you can do it. So when and I ask that question because it's like, why are we trying to solve something? If God created Earth, He created enough food to feed every human on Earth. The United States wastes enough food to feed every human on Earth that's hungry.
Well, is of course, and that's what I'm saying. They're not really trying to do that. It's more of here's the thing. Satan likes to give people packages. He gives them a package of ideas. Some of them appear to be morally good and wholesome, but it's really those ideas are given along with things. It's similar to how to do legislation. They'll have a bill, and this bill will be, hey, we want to come together and get this bill signed because it's going to help humanity. But when you look at the details of the bill, they tend to add on things. Sometimes they call it pork. They tend to add on things to the bill, and those things many times have nothing to do with what's wholesome. And many times it's stuff that's messy, stuff that's, not that appealing, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But it got passed because it was tied in with a bigger idea. And so
like a lie sandwich.
Yeah, it's a lie sandwich, exactly. And so I think the aspects of, we're going to solve world hunger, is really just a package that comes along with a lot of other evil stuff. You know what I'm saying? So a man feel good about what he's doing, but he's not really trying to feed world hunger. It's similar to how some people say, I want to be a billionaire so I can be God's distribution center on earth. Well, that's good if you really mean that, but you really don't mean that. What you really is wanting to just be a billionaire.
Yeah.
And And, you know, I always say, well, if you really want to help people, why don't you go join an organization that already has the resources and work for them and help people?
Yeah.
You know, but they want to be the one, and here we go now, they want to be the one that's in control, and they want to have the money, and they'll figure they'll give a little something to help people. Excuse me. And so I think a lot of times people aren't genuine about the things they say, the things they profess, you know, as much as they're trying to have and dominate and control for themselves. And that's the part that I think is really unfortunate that we see, but that's the nature of man.
Yeah.
He wants to consume. He wants to have for himself. He wants to possess. The Bible talks about that so many places, you know, even how the rich man said, oh, you know, I have, you know, nowhere to put my goods. I have so many goods, you know, I just got my stuff. I got all kind of things to hold my goods. And the Lord was like, don't you know, your soul is required of you. You think you got stuff stored up for the last days, and your last day is today. Yeah. And those things have nothing. And so I think man's desire, selfish desire to obtain, to dominate, to control, to be this or that or whatever, leads us into these even darker places.
Yeah, that's definitely true, and it's one of the things. And I always think in terms of perspective and perception. And one of the things that's interesting is the humans are unique in that way. And some people, I use the terms lower and higher primates, and that's offensive to some people who are non-theistic because they're like, well, we're just animals. No animals higher or lower than another. But I said, well, one of the things that I point out is human beings. Let's suppose we're like every other animal, every other species. We're not unique.
Right.
Why are we the only species that wipes itself out? Why are we the only species that commits crimes against each other or acts against each other out of malice and out of hatred?
Right.
You know, so it's like we do the way that you never see an animal, another species, sodomize or rape its own children.
Right.
You never see them killing their own children except for nutrients to feed other children. So if a dog has puppies, we think of it as cruel, but it's not. So if a dog has a litter of puppies and it knows one's not going to survive, it will eat it in order to nourish the other puppies. So it's not doing it out of malice. Humans are doing these things and receiving pleasure. We do things we do
God
terrible things
out
of pleasure and out of malice. Right. And no other species does that.
Right.
And we have to look at and anyone who's intelligent, if you don't believe in God or you don't believe in evil or that kind of thing, it's more than just a larger brain trying to catch up that is responsible for what the Bible defines as evil. And you have to reconcile that, like why these things are happening.
Right.
And we want to get to the root of why bad things happen.
Right.
And one of the things that I ask atheists sometimes is, would you give up your free will for nothing bad to ever happen? Because if I believe in God. Right. And the reason bad things happen is because of free will.
Right. Right.
So it's like if people's like, why do bad things happen? And they want to blame, if there's a God, why do bad things happen? Bad things happen because we have free will and we chose sin. Right. Our ancestors chose sin, and we bear the brunt and consequences of that ultimate choice that they made. Right. So we just have to, you really have to look at what's really happening. And if you really want to solve quote unquote world hunger, like I even had a discussion about that. World hunger is a result of greed.
Well, of course. I mean, like you said, that's something that can be solved very easily. And like I said, it's more of a moral, like you said, moral dog whistle than it is something that people really want to do. And the ones that are honest and wanting to do that, a lot of times they don't realize that there's powers above them that don't really want to do that. Yeah. And they may even be the organizations that's professing to do it. Yeah, absolutely. And it's wholly a power thing. It's similar to how these world organizations that lend to these developing countries and stuff. but they put them in bondage financially, and they have them tied up in loans and debt, and those countries end up being servants. So they say, oh, we don't have the money, to pay you back. Oh, it's okay. Let me put a base in your country, or that's okay. Give us this land, or give us, your mining resources for the next however many. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and so,
and if you look
so
at
literally, they're literally taking the soul of the country, to give them these loans that they can never pay back.
You look at any country on the planet, but let's just take Africa. If there's water in Africa and there's technology, you can literally turn a desert into a forest. Right. So so when we look at things like that, and we look at, well, why is there hunger if God exists? There's hunger because people are not. No one has properly chose to irrigate. With all the technology we have and all the billions of dollars and all the billionaires who want to help Africa or poor people everywhere, all you have to do is start at the ocean and get water inland. That is not a difficult thing to do. Right. And the reason there's hunger and the reason these places touches on what you were saying, which is they want those resources. And if these people can feed themselves, if they can clothe themselves, if they can drink clean water and things like that, you can't take advantage of that.
They want to be their papa. They want to be their daddy. And so it goes back to man's desire to dominate, his desire to control. And so, pulling back to the angel piece and this whole, this revealing of the aliens. Yeah. And revealing of, these aliens have arrived and they're showing themselves and showing how they were this or they were that or whatever. I think ultimately it's a setup to dominate people, and so they're going to dislodge people's faith. It's going to cause people to lose their faith in the other things they believed in. Because now we have evidence-based faith. Evidence-based religion. So
and some of that evidence will be the end of world hunger, for example.
Yes,
they're going to be like, oh, well, we got water from the ocean to the inland,
right,
and we did this and we did that. So, that's back to the other question I asked, why these things happen. Satan made it this way so that he can profess or get us thinking we can be God, or he can come back later and profess to be God by answering these things. Absolutely. So there's a reason these things haven't been done and answered yet, because even the Bible tells us when it's going to happen. Like, world peace is not going to happen until the Antichrist comes and professes or creates the circumstances for world peace.
So, but the world peace is something morally. It has a perception of being good, but really the world peace is being used, like we're talking about, in order to put people in bondage. The idea of it and the good that sounds like it should come from it is actually, as the Bible talks about, is really a trap. Yeah. And so, that's why I always think about what Jesus said. He said, in this life, you're going to have trouble. Why are we going to have trouble? Because of deceitful men and devils. In this world there are a lot of things that will never get solved truly until Christ returns. Yeah. Because of evil men and devils that many times are in the positions of power and control. If you put me in a room with a whole bunch of poor people, and then you put me in a room with a whole bunch of wealthy people, I guarantee you the evil that's in that room will be much greater in the room for the wealthy people because of what some of those wealthy people had to do and, to become wealthy. And, I'm saying the power behind some of them to obtain wealth, is a different circumstance. And some people may think that's controversial. And sometimes we think poor or eat more evil, or poor or more this and that or whatever. They look at the neighborhoods, they're destitute, there's crime written and stuff like that. But a lot of times, a lot of that's out of desperation, out of affliction, out of bondage. And so, I would say a room full of rich men probably are more laced with evil than a room full of poor men. And so to put that in perspective, I would say dirty money or blood money. Let's say blood money, since we're talking about evil. Show me $1 that doesn't have blood on it. Right? Right. So if you were to wring all them dollars out and measure the amount of blood,
there's going to be more blood in a wealthy room than in a poor room.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely. And I'm not sitting here saying, I don't want anybody listening thinking I'm saying that wealthy people are evil. That's not what I'm saying at all. Because I know there's a lot of good people out there that have acquired wealth and have built things and acquired things. But like I said, but there's a lot of wealthy people out there that have done much evil to get to the place, because that's the place to get to, right? And to hold on to, because wealth comes in many places, not just being a good businessman. It comes from crime. It comes from affliction. It comes from oppression of others. And so I think that it's just something that we have to kind of shift our mindset about, because there's evil poor people, evil good rich people too, and good poor people and good rich people. But I just feel like, because of the dynamic of wealth, and what's required of it many times causes there to be more darkness there.
The Bible says there's spiritual wickedness in high places, not low places.
Yes.
So there's a reason that says that. So and it may, people may feel like we're picking on wealthy people. I know that there's wealth in my future. The reason there's wealth in my future is because of what I seek to do while I'm alive. Right. I don't seek to leave a legacy of wealth. I seek to use wealth to do my version of making the world a better place.
Right.
So it's like, it's just a matter of what we see. And for when people say that out loud and people speak truthfully about it, they have a problem. So you look at the history of wealth on the planet, and no one is arguing the thing. I mean, I'm not even going to put any names out there, those old money names out there on this podcast. But if you look at the history of wealth on the planet, we know that they traded in wars, they're trading weapons on both sides, they're doing these things. The building of wealth came off of very evil acts and things of that nature.
Absolutely.
And it's not we're not attacking a wealthy person. We're just putting in perspective the nature of the elements of human nature that people don't like to talk about. And man
wanting to be like God, yes.
Yeah.
And wanting to be. And so when these fallen angels come, what are they going to do? The wealthy are going to attach themselves to them. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Because that's where the power, the influence is going to be being aligned with these beings. And so everyone that they have control over, whether they're employees or the commerce or this and that or whatever, who controls what's on television? Mm-hmm. The wealthy people. Who controls the food that's available to eat? Wealthy people. Mm-hmm. Who controls the news? Wealthy people. You see what I'm saying? And so, I think social media has kind of balanced some of the news aspect, because you have people who did not have influence. Now they have influence without wealth. Yeah. But it's still who owns social media?
Yeah.
Wealthy people. And what do they do? What do they do? What do they do when you don't push their agenda? What do they do? They censor you, they turn you off, they ban you, they block you, and all this type of stuff.
You're in social media jail.
You're in social media jail. Absolutely, absolutely. Well, man, I tell you what, I have enjoyed this podcast. I think it's essential that we as the people of God be ready for the alien deception that's going to come. And that we don't be deceived. As the Bible talks about, there's going to be a great falling away that is going to fall upon this earth. I think a part of that is some type of alien revealing. I don't think it's really aliens from another planet as much as it is fallen angels, offspring of fallen angels that are going to deceive in the last days. The Bible says, just as the days of Noah, so shall it be when the Son of Man returns. And so, what was going on in the days of Noah? There was giants on the earth. There was fallen angels. There was angel offspring on the earth, dominating, ruling over people. You see what I'm saying? So we're returning to those times, and it's just a part of, I think, everything that God spoke about in His Word, in the Holy Bible. And so we just need to be prepared as the people of God for this deception. Anyway, my name is James Alfred. This has been the Kingdom Authority Broadcast. I've had with me Aman Evans. Make sure you tune in each and every week, and we talk about some very deep and interesting subjects. Well, God bless you. We love you, and we'll talk to you soon.
That was good.